seems that you and Peniel both agree on the evolution of civil rights. I'm thinking about a study that I read recently that said that white Americans now believe they are more racially oppressed than black Americans. And it was interesting because they referenced a study from 50 years ago that showed that 50 years ago, blacks and whites agreed on who was more oppressed and to what degree. Now we have some people dream of a post-racial society, but we're in this space where we have very different perceptions, it seems. Does that disturb you? And if so, how can we reach back into the legacy of civil rights to reestablish some sense of common understanding?
Right. Well, I think, it doesn't do any of us a service if we get into the oppression Olympics, right? I'm more oppressed than you for whatever reason, right? And I think we need to really focus on, if we're thinking about Dr. King today, the March on Washington was the March on Washington for jobs and freedom, right? And so when we think about economic disparities, right, that have these real world racial implications for African Americans and Latinos specifically, right? So it doesn't matter if other people feel a certain way. The reality is we can actually look at the data, and I teach statistics, so I can show you the data that says that African Americans and Latinos do not have the same resources. They do not have the same life chances as other Americans. And that, to me, is the failure of big D and small d democratic principles in America. And I think this is also what we need to think about. It's like, in the 60s when Vietnam was happening and the world is watching, the world is still watching us, right? And so the inequities that they see happening in their countries based on our decisions that we make for them, and the trickle down that we see in our country. It's obscene that in the 21st century, women are getting 70 cents on the dollar, and if women are getting 70 cents on the dollar, I don't want to know what black women are getting on the dollar, right? I don't want to know what my other colleagues are making, because we know that these inequities still exist.
I'll wrap up, and Christina, why don't you take the last word in this panel, but I'll wrap up my words for this panel by quoting Dr. King through something that you tweeted this week and jumped out at me and right on, and that is, quote, 1962, there is something wrong with a situation that will take necessities from the masses and give luxuries to the classes. Martin Luther King, 1962.
Well, if you read the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, specifically Federalist 10, we know that the framers were actually struggling with that idea back then. So the fact that we sort of push this country to think about democracy is exactly what Peniel said. We cannot congratulate ourselves for sitting at the Apollo on a lovely Sunday afternoon when we know for a fact that it's not just black and brown children, actually. Now it's actually, and it's always been, poor people, and that's what Dr. King was actually trying to get people to understand. It's the 90% of America, actually, that needs democratic principles.